Captain Kim stood on the bridge of the starship Horizon, watching the stars through the wide viewport. Today was the day humanity would meet the Galactic Defense Pact. She took a deep breath, smoothing down her blue uniform. After years of deep space signals and careful planning, face-to-face contact was minutes away. "Nervous?" asked Lieutenant Park, looking up from his control panel. His dark eyes reflected the blinking lights of the ship's systems. "A healthy amount," Kim replied with a small smile. "First impressions matter." The bridge crew worked quietly around them, the air thick with anticipation. Humanity had encountered other alien species before, but none as powerful or as organized as the Pact. These weren't just explorers or traders, they were warriors who controlled vast regions of space. "They're approaching, Captain," called out Officer Lee from the scanner station. "One large command vessel with 4 escort ships." Kim nodded. "Right on schedule." The alien ships appeared on the main screen, sleek, predatory vessels with sharp angles that seemed designed to intimidate. The command ship alone was 3 times the size of the Horizon. "They're hailing us," Park announced, his fingers hovering. "Over the communication controls, on screen," Kim ordered, squaring her shoulders. The view screen shifted to show a being with iridescent scales covering tough skin. Vertical pupils narrowed slightly as they focused on Kim. 2 rows of small, sharp teeth appeared as the alien opened its mouth to speak. "I am Admiral Zhou of the Galactic Defense Pact," the translator conveyed in a slightly metallic voice. "Your vessel is cleared to dock with our command ship." 6 hours later, Kim sat at a large round table surrounded by representatives from 7 different species. What had begun as formal diplomatic introductions had gradually shifted into cultural exchange. "Your world interests us," said a 4-armed soldier named Trock. His skin was ash gray and looked as tough as old leather. "Particularly these survival tales your lieutenant mentioned." Kim nodded. "Earth has many environments, from burning deserts to frozen wastelands. We've adapted to survive in all of them." "Tell us more about these feats your species performs," urged a female alien with feathered crests along her skull. "Well, many humans run marathons, races over 42 kilometers long for recreation," Kim explained. "Some swim in nearly freezing waters, others climb mountains without oxygen assistance." A strange sound filled the room, a mixture of clicking, hissing, and rumbling that the translator identified as laughter. "You expect us to believe unaugmented biological organisms can perform such tasks?" asked a thin alien with pale blue skin. "Perhaps your species enjoys exaggeration." Kim felt her face flush slightly. "These aren't exaggerations, they're documented facts." Admiral Zhou leaned forward, his scales shifting color slightly in the light. "Captain Kim, we've studied thousands of species across the galaxy. The energy requirements alone for such activities would be impossible for a carbon-based life form of your size and metabolic rate." "With respect, Admiral, they're not impossible. They happen every day on Earth." Trock turned to his colleagues. "I believe humans call these tall tales, cultural myths to inflate their importance." The aliens exchanged amused glances as Kim maintained her composure. The meeting continued, but the undercurrent had shifted. These powerful aliens didn't just doubt human capabilities, they found them laughable. Later, as the Earth delegation returned to their temporary quarters aboard the alien vessel, Lieutenant Park walked beside Kim. "They don't believe a word we've said," he muttered, keeping his voice low. "Did you see how they looked at us, like we're children making up stories?" Kim slowed her pace. "I noticed." "What does this mean for the alliance talks?" Park asked. "It means," Kim replied carefully, "that they don't respect us, and without respect there can be no true alliance." They reached the section allocated to the humans, austere rooms that felt clinical and cold. The artificial gravity was set slightly higher than Earth standard, a small reminder that they were visitors in an alien domain. "We need to find a way to show them," Kim said finally. "Words clearly aren't enough." That night, as Kim reviewed her notes for the next day's negotiations, her communication device chimed. A message from Admiral Zhou requested her presence for an urgent meeting. She found him in a darkened command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing a planet's surface. Even with her limited understanding of alien expressions, She could tell something was wrong. A situation has developed, Drac said without preamble. Proxima 4 mining colony, major seismic event. The displays showed tunnels collapsing and warning symbols flashing across structures. Kim recognized the signs of disaster. How many people? She asked. Approximately 5,000 colonists trapped, Drac replied. We're deploying rescue teams, but conditions are challenging. High gravity, toxic atmosphere, unstable structures. We project significant casualties. Kim studied the data scrolling across the screens, an idea forming. Maybe this was the opportunity they needed, not just to help those in danger, but to prove humanity's worth to these doubtful aliens. The Horizon carries a specialized rescue unit, she said. We'd like to volunteer their assistance, Admiral. Drac turned to face her fully, his vertical pupils dilating slightly in what she guessed was surprise. Captain, perhaps I wasn't clear. The environment is toxic to most species. Gravity is nearly double Earth standard. Temperatures fluctuate between extremes. We understand the conditions, Kim replied steadily. We still volunteer. For a moment, the Admiral was silent. Then his mouth opened slightly, revealing those sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. Very well, Captain. Your assistance is accepted. As Kim left to brief her team, she couldn't miss the whispered conversation between two alien officers behind her. They'll retreat within hours, one said. If they survive that long, replied the other. Kim kept walking, her back straight. Soon they would see what humans could really do. Captain Kim left the meeting feeling uneasy. The Galactic Defense Pact representatives had made their opinions clear. They saw humans as weak, primitive, and barely worth their time. 3 days of negotiations had only deepened this divide. As she walked through the sleek metal corridors of the alien command ship, Lieutenant Park caught up to her, his face tight with frustration. Did you see how they laughed when you mentioned our Arctic explorers? He asked, keeping his voice low. Like we were telling children's stories. Kim nodded. They don't believe we can do what we say we can do, and without respect, there's no foundation for a real alliance. They reached the section allocated to the human delegation, austere rooms with lighting too bright and gravity set just high enough to be uncomfortable, a small reminder that they were guests, not equals. The crew is feeling it too, Park said. Even the mess hall staff treat us like we're made of glass. One of them actually asked if our food needed to be pre-chewed. Kim suppressed a smile despite her frustration. Pre-chewed? Really? I wish I was joking. Her communication device chimed with an urgent message. Admiral Drac requested her presence in the command center immediately. When Kim arrived, she found the command center buzzing with activity. Holographic displays showed a planet's surface with flashing warning indicators and scrolling data. Even without understanding the alien language, she recognized the signs of disaster. Admiral Drac stood at the center, his scaled skin shifting between dark green and purple. A sign of stress, she'd learned. Captain Kim, he said without preamble. We have a situation on Proxima 4. The main display zoomed in on a mining complex built into a mountainside. Underground tunnels were highlighted in red, many showing structural failures. A major seismic event has trapped approximately 5,000 colonists, Drac continued. We're deploying rescue teams, but conditions are challenging. What kind of conditions? Kim asked, studying the display. One of the alien officers tapped controls, bringing up environmental data. Gravity 1.8 times Earth standard. Atmosphere contains high levels of methane and sulfur compounds. Temperature fluctuations between extreme hot and cold. Structure integrity failing in multiple sections. We project significant casualties, Admiral Drac stated flatly. Even with our best teams. Kim watched the real-time footage of collapsing tunnels and thought about what Park had said about respect. An idea began to form, risky, but potentially game-changing. The Horizon carries a specialized human rescue unit, she said carefully. We'd like to offer their assistance. Admiral Drac turned to face her fully, his vertical pupils narrowing to thin slits. Captain, perhaps I wasn't clear about the conditions. The environment is toxic to most species. The gravity alone would crush your fragile bones. Temperatures swing between extremes that would kill unprotected humans within minutes. I understand. The conditions, Kim replied steadily. We still volunteer. Drac stared at her for a long moment. The command center had gone quiet, all eyes on their exchange. Very well, he finally said. Your assistance is accepted. As Kim turned to leave, she heard whispered comments from the alien officers. They'll retreat within the first hour, if they survive that long. Kim kept her head high as she left to contact the horizon. This was the moment they needed. A chance to show, not tell. Back on the horizon, Sergeant Lee stood before his rescue team in the briefing room. The 5-person unit had trained together for years, handling disasters across Earth's harshest environments. I won't sugarcoat this, Lee said, pointing to the holographic display showing the mining complex. This is worse than anything we've faced. He outlined the challenges: crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere, unstable structures, and extreme temperatures. The team listened intently, occasionally asking technical questions. One more thing, Lee added. The aliens think we'll fail. They think we'll give up and run. Officer Zhang, the team's medical specialist, laughed. They obviously haven't met us. Exactly, Lee nodded. This isn't just about saving lives anymore, though that's still our primary mission. This is about showing what humans can really do. As they prepared their equipment, Captain Kim entered the room. The team snapped to attention. At ease, she said. I wanted to see you before you deploy. She looked at each team member in turn. I know I don't need to tell you how important this mission is. We won't let you down, Captain, Lee assured her. Kim nodded. I know you won't. Just come back alive. All of you. 2 hours later, the human rescue team's shuttle approached Proxima 4. Through the viewport, they could see the jagged mountains where the mining complex was built, partially obscured by swirling yellow clouds. Remember, Lee said as they began descent, full environmental suits at all times. The atmosphere will kill you in seconds if exposed. They landed on a clearing near the mine entrance where a group of alien rescue workers had established a command post. The aliens watched with obvious skepticism as the humans emerged from their shuttle, moving carefully in the high gravity. An alien commander approached them, towering over even the tallest human. Your assistance is unexpected, he said through a translator. Our teams have cleared the main entrance, but progress beyond has been minimal. The inner tunnels are highly unstable. Lee nodded. We'll start with the eastern section where life signs were detected. Do you have updated structural data? The alien seemed surprised by the question. Yes, but the tunnels there are nearly collapsed. We deemed them too dangerous to attempt. We'll take that data anyway, Lee replied calmly. The humans prepared to enter the mine. Kim watched from the command ship via video feed. Beside her, Admiral Drac and his officers observed with barely concealed skepticism. Your team moves sluggishly in our gravity, Drac commented. They'll tire quickly. Kim kept her eyes on the screen. Just watch. The human team entered the darkness of the mine, each step deliberate in the crushing gravity. Ahead of them lay a maze of collapsed tunnels, toxic gas, and trapped colonists. Behind them, a galaxy of doubters waiting for them to fail. Lee activated his helmet light and looked at his team. Despite the weight of their equipment and the strain of the high gravity, each face showed the same determination. Let's show them what humans can do, he said simply, and led the way into the darkness. Sergeant Lee stood at the ramp of the dropship, the harsh alien sun beating down on his environmental suit. The distant mountains of Proxima 4 loomed before him, their jagged peaks disappearing into swirling yellow clouds. He checked his team's gear one final time. The specially reinforced suits designed to withstand the toxic atmosphere and temperature, swings that could kill in minutes. Comms check, he said, his voice steady despite the crushing gravity already making his legs ache. Zhang, check. Han, check. Kim, check. Park, check. Lee nodded, satisfied. Remember, their monitoring drones will be watching our every move. But that's not why we're here. We're here for the people trapped inside. The 5 humans moved forward, each step requiring twice the effort it would on Earth. Their boots sank into the reddish soil as they approached the mining complex entrance, where alien rescue workers had established a command post. The aliens towered over them, their scaled bodies better adapted to the harsh conditions. One stepped forward, a commander. Judging by the markings on its armor, your captain insisted on your assistance, the alien said, its translator making the words sound flat and emotionless. The main entrance is clear, but we've made minimal progress beyond. The inner tunnels are highly unstable. Lee nodded. We'll start with the eastern section. Our scans showed life signs there. The alien's vertical pupils narrowed. Those tunnels are completely collapsed. We've written off that section. We haven't, Lee replied simply. We'll need the most recent structural data you have. The alien stared at him for a long moment before reluctantly transferring the data to the human's devices. Lee studied the holographic display that appeared before him, showing a labyrinth of red lines indicating collapsed passages. This is worse than I thought, he muttered to his team, but there are air pockets here and here. If people took shelter in the storage chambers, they might still be alive. Officer Zhang pointed to a narrow passage. We could try to get through here, but it's barely wide enough for one person at a time. Then that's our way in, Lee decided. Kim, you're smallest. You lead. I'll be right behind you. The rest follow. Keep comms open and watch for structural changes. The alien commander made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your environmental suits won't last more than 6 hours in these conditions. The temperature in those tunnels swings between freezing and boiling. You'll retreat long before then. Lee just nodded politely and turned away. To his team he said quietly, let's show them what humans can do. They entered the mine through the main shaft, where emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the rough-hewn walls. The airlock hissed behind them, sealing them inside. Their helmet lights cut through the dusty darkness ahead. Gravity's even worse in here, Park grunted, his breathing already labored. The suits can only compensate so much. Pace yourself, Lee reminded them. This is a marathon, not a sprint. They reached the first junction, where the main tunnel branched into 3 directions. The left passage was their target, the one leading to the eastern section. But it was almost completely blocked by fallen rock and twisted support beams. Officer Kim approached the narrow opening and studied it. I can squeeze through. There's about 15 inches of clearance at the top. Lee nodded. Go ahead, I'll be right behind you. Kim lay on her stomach and began to wriggle into the small space, pushing herself forward with her elbows and knees. The others watched anxiously as she disappeared inch by inch into the darkness. I'm through, her voice came over the comms a minute later. But it's a tight fit. You bigger guys will have trouble. One by one they followed, scraping through the narrow opening. Park, the largest, barely made it, the rocks tearing at his suit. Warning indicators flashed on his helmet display. Suit integrity at 86%, he reported. Not great, but I'll manage. They pushed deeper into the mine, following the twisting passages that grew narrower and more treacherous. The temperature rose steadily until their cooling systems struggled to keep up. Sweat poured down their faces inside their helmets. Life signs ahead, Zhang announced, checking her scanner. Faint but steady, at least 6 distinct signatures. And toxic gas levels are rising, Han added. The air in those pockets won't last much longer. They quickened their pace despite the exhaustion pulling at their muscles. Every step in the crushing gravity felt like climbing a mountain with weights strapped to their legs. 4 hours into the mission, disaster struck. A minor tremor shook the tunnel, dislodging a support beam that came crashing down directly onto Corporal Han. He cried out in pain as it pinned his leg to the ground. Han! Lee was at his side immediately, assessing the damage. Status report. Han grimaced, his face pale with pain. Legs broken, suit punctured at the thigh. I'm getting atmospheric seepage warnings. The team quickly pulled the beam off him, but the damage was done. His environmental suit was compromised, allowing the toxic atmosphere to slowly leak in. We need to get him back to the surface, Zhang said, her medical training kicking in. No, Han protested. The mission comes first. Those people don't have much time left. Lee looked at him, then at the tunnel, ahead, weighing their options. Through their helmet cameras, he knew the alien observers were watching, probably expecting them to retreat. Han, can you seal the breach? He asked. Already did emergency patching, Han replied. It'll hold for maybe 2 hours before toxin levels become dangerous. 3 hours until critical. Lee nodded. Then we have 2 hours to find those survivors and start heading back. Zhang, stabilize his leg. Park, you're carrying him when we move. Yes, sir, they responded in unison. Back on the alien command ship, Captain Kim watched the drama unfold on the monitor. Beside her, Admiral Zhou and his officers observed with growing bewilderment. They should retreat, one officer said. There. Team member is injured, their suit compromised. It's the logical choice. But they're not retreating, another noted with confusion. Admiral Zhou turned to Captain Kim. Your sergeant is risking his entire team for strangers. Explain this behavior. Kim's eyes remained fixed on the screen. That's what humans do, she said simply. In the mine, the team pressed on, Park carrying the injured Han on his back, the extra weight nearly unbearable in the high gravity. They reached a collapsed chamber where the scanner showed life signs. Hello, Lee called out, pressing his helmet against the rock wall. Is anyone in there? We're rescue workers from Earth. For a moment there was silence. Then came a faint tapping from the other side. They're alive, Lee said, relief washing over him. Now we just need to get them out. 3 days had passed since the human rescue team entered the mining complex. 3 days of pushing beyond what should have been physically possible. 3 days of nearly non-stop work with minimal rest, fighting against crushing gravity, extreme temperatures and toxic gas seeping through the smallest breaches in their suits. Captain Kim stood in the alien command center, watching the latest footage from the rescue operation. The human team had just brought out another group of survivors, 16 miners who had been trapped in a maintenance shaft deep in the eastern section. This brought their total to 342 people rescued, nearly triple what the aliens had calculated was possible. Admiral Zhou approached, his reptilian face impossible to read, but his posture had changed since the mission began. Gone was the dismissive confidence, replaced with something Kim thought might be confusion. Your team has not slept in 72 hours, he stated, as if presenting evidence in a trial. Officer Han's environmental suit has been compromised for over 40 hours, yet he continues to function. Officer Park has been carrying double loads in twice Earth's gravity. This should not be possible. Kim turned to face him, yet they're doing it. How? The question seemed to burst from the Admiral, his careful composure cracking. Your species is not built for these conditions. Your bone density, muscle mass, respiratory capacity, all inferior to even our youngest recruits. Yet your team has outperformed our elite units. Before Kim could answer, her communication device alerted her that the rescue team was returning to base camp with the final survivors. Let's continue this conversation when they're back, she suggested. 2 hours later, the human team trudged up the ramp of their dropship, helping the last of the survivors, a group of maintenance workers who had been trapped in a ventilation hub. Their environmental suits were torn and patched in dozens of places. The display panels on their helmets flickered with warning messages about suit integrity and life support levels. Despite the exhaustion evident in their slow movements, they maintained their focus, helping each survivor into the medical area, before finally removing their own helmets with sighs of relief. Mission complete, Captain, Sergeant Lee reported, his face gaunt and streaked with sweat. All survivors accounted for according to the colony's records. Kim nodded, pride swelling in her chest. Well done, all of you. Get some rest. You've more than earned it. Admiral Zhou had followed her onto the ship, his tall frame requiring him to duck through the human-sized doorways. He stared at the rescue team with unblinking eyes. These readings can't be accurate, he muttered, looking at a data tablet one of his officers had handed him. Your Officer Han has been exposed to toxic atmosphere levels that should have caused respiratory failure hours ago. Han, who was sitting on a bench while Zhang treated his injured leg, looked up. It burns like hell, sir, he said simply. But I've felt worse. When? Zhou demanded. Desert training in Death Valley, Han replied, with a tired smile. Summer exercise, 130 degrees, full pack, no water for the last 6 hours. This was bad, but not the worst. Admiral Zhou's scales shifted colors rapidly, a sign of agitation, Kim had learned. Captain Kim, I must speak with you and your sergeant privately, he said abruptly. Minutes later, they gathered in the ship's small conference room. Admiral Zhou paced the limited space, his powerful tail occasionally knocking against the chairs. Your team's performance makes no sense, he began without preamble. We monitored their vital signs throughout the mission. By all biological metrics, they should have collapsed from exhaustion after 20 hours. Officer Han should be dead from toxin exposure. Officer Park should have sustained spinal damage from the loads he carried in high gravity. Lee sat quietly, too tired to be diplomatic. With respect, Admiral, maybe your metrics are wrong. Drac stopped pacing. Explain. The stories, Captain. Kim told you during our first meetings about human endurance runners, Arctic explorers, disaster responders. They weren't myths or exaggerations. They were just facts about what humans do. Impossible, Drac insisted, but with less conviction than before. No species can function effectively after 3 days without sleep. The biological cost is too high, Lee shrugged. Humans can. It's not pleasant, and we'll pay for it later. But when lives are at stake, we push through. How? The question seemed to contain genuine curiosity now. It's who we are, Lee said simply. Throughout our evolution, we survived by enduring, by continuing when logic said to stop, by ignoring pain, exhaustion, hunger, thirst, whatever it took to reach the next waterhole or bring down the next meal. Kim added, other species might be stronger or faster, but humans just keep going. Admiral Drac was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, these feats your team performed, are they common among your species? Common enough, Lee replied. What we did here wasn't extraordinary by human standards. Difficult, yes. Pushing our limits, certainly, but not superhuman. Not superhuman, Drac repeated slowly. Just human. He turned to Captain Kim. I must report to the Pact Council immediately. This changes our assessment significantly. After the Admiral left, Kim turned to Lee. Get some sleep, Sergeant. That's an order. Lee nodded tiredly, but pride showed through his exhaustion. We showed them, didn't we, Captain? Yes, she smiled. You certainly did. The next day, Admiral Drac requested a formal meeting with the entire human delegation. The atmosphere was noticeably different from their previous encounters. The alien representatives no longer wore expressions of thinly veiled amusement or condescension. The Pact Council has reviewed the data from the Proxima IV rescue operation, Drac announced. We have also examined historical records from Earth that your Captain Kim has provided. He activated a holographic display showing side-by-side comparisons of human and alien physiological readings. Your species possesses capabilities we failed to properly assess, he continued. Your pain tolerance exceeds all known sentient species. Your adaptability allows for survival in conditions that would kill most of our soldiers. Most remarkably, your psychological resilience, what you call hope or determination, appears to have no equivalent among Pact members. The Admiral's scales shifted to a deep blue, a color Kim hadn't seen before. The tales you shared of human achievements, they were not exaggerations or myths as we assumed, he admitted, addressing Kim directly. I have seen the evidence with my own eyes. Your Sergeant Lee said it clearly. These weren't extraordinary. Feats by human standards. Just humans doing what humans have always done. He straightened to his full impressive height. The Galactic Defense Pact formally acknowledges the unique capabilities of humanity and recognizes your species as worthy allies. After the meeting, as the human delegation walked back to their quarters, Lieutenant Park couldn't contain his grin. Did you see their faces? He asked Kim. They actually respect us now. Kim nodded, her expression thoughtful. It shouldn't have taken a disaster to prove our worth, but sometimes actions speak louder than words. What happens next? Park asked. A real alliance, Kim replied. One based on mutual respect rather than condescension. One where each species contributes their unique strengths. She smiled slightly. And all it took was showing them what humans can do when pushed to their limits. 2 weeks after the Proxima Y4 rescue mission, Captain Kim stood beside Admiral Drac on the observation deck of the Pact's massive flagship. Through the viewport, Earth hung like a blue marble against the blackness of space. It was the first time any Pact vessel had entered the Sol system, a gesture of trust from both sides. It looked so fragile, Drac remarked, his scales shifting to a contemplative blue hue. yet it produced a species that can endure more than any of our warriors. Kim smiled slightly. Appearances can be deceiving. That's something both our peoples are learning. The door slid open behind them, and Lieutenant Park entered with a data tablet. Captain, the first joint training session is about to begin. Sergeant Lee is ready with the demonstration team. Kim nodded. Thank you, Lieutenant. We'll be right there. They made their way through the ship's wide corridors, passing groups of alien crew members who now regarded the humans with curious respect rather than amusement. 2 weeks had brought remarkable changes in attitude. The training hall was massive, with high ceilings to accommodate the taller packed species. At one end stood Sergeant Lee and his team, looking small but confident beside their alien counterparts. Along the walls, senior officers and diplomats from 7 different species had gathered to observe. Begin, Admiral Zhou commanded, taking his place at the front of the audience. Lee stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly across the hall. Today's demonstration will focus on human adaptability and endurance training. These are not special techniques or technologies, just basic methods humans have developed throughout our history. For the next hour, the human team demonstrated training exercises that seemed simple at first. Running, climbing, swimming in a specially constructed tank, but they kept going long after the alien observers expected them to stop. They showed techniques for managing pain, conserving energy, and pushing through mental barriers. The difference isn't that we don't feel pain or exhaustion, Lee explained, as Park demonstrated a stress position that had several alien officers shifting uncomfortably just watching. It's that we've learned to continue despite them. Later, in a conference room aboard the flagship, Captain Kim sat with Admiral Zhou and representatives from the Pact Council. Before them lay a formal alliance agreement, the result of intensive negotiations following the rescue mission. Our scientists have been analyzing your physiology more thoroughly, a female officer with feathered crest said, gesturing to a holographic display of human biological data. The results are unexpected. In what way? Kim asked. Your species' ability to persist through what should be debilitating pain, exhaustion, and stress has no parallel among Pact members, she explained. We evolved as ambush predators or swift prey, creatures that either succeeded quickly or retreated to try again. The concept of simply continuing through failure, pain, and exhaustion is foreign to us. Zhou nodded. This explains much about your history. The epic migrations across continents, surviving ice ages, crossing oceans in primitive vessels, all feats that seemed implausible until we witnessed your team on Proxima 4. And it's not just physical, added another counselor, this one with translucent skin through which complex organs could be seen pulsing. Your psychological resilience, what you call hope in hopeless situations, is entirely unique. Kim leaned forward. This is why the alliance makes sense. We each bring different strengths, your technologies, your experience among the stars, and our human tenacity. Indeed, Zhou agreed, which brings us to the training program outlined in Section 12 of the agreement. The discussion continued for hours, hammering out details of how humans and Pact species would work together. By the end, they had created something unprecedented, a true partnership between vastly different evolutionary paths. 3 months later, the first joint military exercise was held on an uninhabited moon in the Proxima system, not far from where the rescue mission had taken place. Human and alien forces worked side by side, learning from each other's strengths and compensating for weaknesses. Captain Kim watched from a command post as a mixed team navigated a hazardous terrain course. The aliens moved with incredible speed and precision over the open ground, while the humans showed their worth in the punishing endurance sections. They're adapting to each other's methods, Lieutenant Park observed, standing beside her. The aliens are pacing themselves better, and our people are learning to use burst speed more effectively. Kim nodded. That's the whole point. We're stronger together than either would be alone. Admiral Zhou approached, ducking slightly to enter the human-sized shelter. The Council is impressed with the progress, he said, without preamble. They've approved expansion of the program to include all Pact defense forces. That's excellent news, Kim replied. Zhou's vertical pupils fixed on her. There is something I've been meaning to ask you, Captain. After your team succeeded on Proxima 4, you could have used that achievement to demand better terms, more concessions from the Pact. Yet you didn't. Why? Kim considered the question. Because this isn't about winning or dominating. It's about understanding. We didn't want to prove we were better, just that we were worthy of respect, of being seen for who we really are. Drac was silent for a moment. Another uniquely human perspective, he finally said. Most species in the Pact would have leveraged such an advantage immediately. Maybe that's another strength we bring to the Alliance, Kim suggested. Different ways of thinking about victory and cooperation. That evening, a formal ceremony marked the official signing of the Human Pact Alliance Treaty. The Grand Hall of the flagship was filled with representatives from all member species, along with the entire human delegation. Sergeant Lee and his team were given places of honor near the front. They looked uncomfortable in their dress uniforms, but stood tall as Admiral Drac recognized their achievement. The actions of 5 humans changed how an entire galactic power views a species, he announced. They showed us that strength takes many forms, that appearances can be deceptive, and that we all have much to learn from each other. As Captain Kim stepped forward to sign the document, she thought about how far they'd come from those first meetings when alien laughter had greeted stories of human endurance. This alliance is just the beginning, she said, her voice carrying across the hushed hall. Humans have always been explorers, pushing boundaries and venturing into the unknown. Now we do so with new friends beside us, each bringing their own unique strengths to the journey. She pressed her thumb to the document, the biometric signature glowing briefly as it registered. Together, she concluded, there's no limit to what we can achieve. Later, as the delegation prepared to return to the horizon, Sergeant Lee approached Captain Kim. Permission to speak freely, Captain. Always, Sergeant, Lee grinned. When we first met these aliens, they laughed at stories of what humans could do. Now they're signing treaties and planning joint operations. All because we showed them what just human really means, Kim smiled. Sometimes you have to show, not tell. And what we showed them, Lee said, looking around at the alien crew members now treating them as equals, is that humanity's greatest strength isn't technology or weapons or even intelligence. What is it then, Sergeant? Simple, he replied. We just don't know when to quit.